At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Learn more at asuonline.asu.edu.
Now, the Hunt Palmer Show.
A magic beyond anything you could ever imagine.
You are now listening to the Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Locking down the middle of the day.
You really think that's the best idea?
Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
It's quite a piece of work.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer, not Charles Hanniger and Jimmy Ott for 2 more hours. Coming to you from this Raising Cane studio downtown in the capital city on this Thursday. Brought to you by Sagrera Farms, premium Angus beef. Got Jordan Kitchens, Cassie Spazzali back there on the 1s and 2s. We'll do plenty over the next couple of hours. Luke Johnson talking Saints in 15 minutes. There's a new offensive tackle in the portal. I want to talk about it. There's an Ole Miss linebacker in the portal. I want to talk about it. I did a profile this morning on Trey Wilson from Florida, who LSU picked up. I got to say, I learned some things about Trey Wilson in the course of writing that piece. I want to talk about at the end of the hour. Blake Baker was with the morning show boys earlier today, so we'll get to some of what he had to say in hour number 2. Chris Blair, voice of the Tigers, will be along in an hour and 15 minutes. And 2 former Tigers involved in a big gambling issue that we will talk about in 90 minutes. Let's crank it up the way we do every day with our opening drive.
Welcome to the big league.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive. Presented by Fabry Chevrolet GMC in St. Francisville.
Look, y'all, I was on the PMAC last night. Weird vibes. I mean, a decent SEC crowd for the PMAC. I've been going to the Pete Maravich Assembly Center for most SEC home games for now 20 years, basically. And I know what that place looks like for SEC games, and that was a pretty standard crowd. But for a long time, when Kentucky came to town, that place was pretty full. John Calipari, John Wall, Anthony Davis, the Harrison twins, Willie Cauley-Stein, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker. Like, they brought people out. And a lot of times LSU was good. A lot of times LSU wasn't very good. But it was a packed house. And last night it wasn't. But the crowd got into it at the end. And LSU's heart got broken at the end. This team is finding ways to lose. In the SEC opener against A&M, you fought and scrapped and clawed without your point guard, who you didn't know you were going to be without until 2 days before the game. And you had the ball in a lead late, and you turned it over twice. Your freshman point guard wasn't ready for the moment on the road. You lost a tight game. You come back in South Carolina, get the doors blown off in the first half. You fight back from down 30, cut it to 6. Can't finish. And then last night, I'm not even talking about Vanderbilt because they're way better than you and they ran you off the floor. You found a different way to lose. And it was a heartbreaking loss to watch. It really was. Because you could envision, with 1.7 seconds on that clock, a way that LSU could claw back not only into this game, obviously they're in control of the game with 1.7 seconds left, back into the season. It was not unreasonable. But they didn't. Before we talk about the last play of the game, I want to talk about the whole game. They came out ready to play, prepared to play, executing, and at the same time got an absolute clunker from Kentucky. They got their own issues. But LSU came out, and Markel Sutton hit a couple of threes. Max McKinnon hit a 3. You were getting to the rim, getting out in transition, and Kentucky started 1 of 13 from the floor and 3 of 19. And some of that was Kentucky not knowing what the heck they were doing out there because they didn't have their point guard either, and their coach is doing a bad job this year. And some of it was LSU was really playing defense. This is an LSU team that has often been driven by like they're standing still, has often failed to close out on the three-point line, has often really struggled on defense. They were locked in. They were playing well. They were getting their hands on basketballs. They were getting deflections at the rim. They were forcing shot clock violations and late shots. It was really good. And LSU, in the first half, stretched that lead to 15 points 8 minutes in and held Kentucky off by double digits almost the rest of the first half. At one brief moment for 22 seconds, it dipped to 9. Chandler hit a 3, but LSU immediately came back and got a Rashad King jumper and pushed it to 11. And you got to the break after Tamba hits a 3, up 16 at the break. That's a great half of basketball. Well coached, well executed, well defended, well shot. You were doing all that without any help from McKinnon and Nwoku, who have been really two of your big key pieces on offense. And then the second half came. And in the second half, you saw what we're used to seeing in the first half. And this is where LSU has a problem they can't fix. They cannot chase guys off the three-point line and cool teams off from three-point range. They can't do it. Texas Tech went nuts in the first half. Prairie View A&M went nuts in the first half. South Carolina went nuts in the first half. Kentucky went nuts in the second half. They scored 53 points on 65% shooting, 73% from three-point line. That is a lack of execution, a lack of adjustments, a lack of a plan. I don't believe LSU is ill-equipped to play defense. They have some issues on the perimeter with quickness. But they have length and size. They have some athletes. Tomba's an athlete. King's an athlete. Robert Miller's an athlete. Nwoku's an athlete. They've got enough guys to play defense, and far too often they cannot. And they couldn't last night. They could not contest Otega Owe, the preseason SEC Player of the Year. Surprise, surprise, he can put the biscuit in the basket. And he did it last night, 15 points in the second half. And so you let Kentucky erase that entire lead and take a lead with 4 minutes to go. But to LSU's credit, they bowed up and got a couple stops late. They got a shot clock violation by Owe. Now, it was by the tip of his fingers, but you got the shot clock violation. You defended well enough to do that. You go down, McKinnon draws the foul, makes the 2 free throws. He had a tough night offensively. Max McKinnon finished this game 4 of 16 from the floor, but he gets the 2 free throws when you need them. You come down, Owe drives, he misses he gets fouled, 4 seconds left, free throw, misses the second free throw, and then Tamba gets the ball, gets fouled, up 1, late shot clock, and he goes to the line and misses them both. And so you got a situation where Kentucky calls timeout, they're down 1 with 1.7 seconds left, and I think LSU did almost everything right on that last play. They had Markel Sutton defending the inbounder. He's 6'9" and a great athlete with long arms. So you force Kentucky to throw a baseball pass the length of the floor. You can't foul. You cannot foul. But you can play the ball. And Miller is face guarding Kentucky's center. He's in front of Malachi Moreno where he should be. And all he has to do is touch the basketball. If he touches it, LSU wins. With 1.7 left, the only way Kentucky can win is if they get a clean catch. And the ball goes 4 inches over Miller's hands, right into Moreno's hands, and he makes a free throw line jumper. I don't have a lot of beef with how LSU played it. I wish Miller would have judged the ball more properly and either backed up or waited a tick, but he jumped and didn't deflect it. And Kentucky stole one. They stole one. And it's heartbreaking for me, for Matt McMahon. And most of you, I would guess 98 to 99% of you would roll your eyes out of the back of your head hearing that. And that's fine. You're probably right. But you had a chance to win this game. You had a chance to win the A&M game. And it just feels like this program cannot get it out of neutral. They can in November and December. They can't do it in January. And every January you show up and you're out of the race. And that's what it feels like. You had to win that game last night. When you got an 18-point lead, when you got a 1-point lead and the basketball with 2 seconds to go and you can't win, it's just not meant to be. And these guys will try to get off the mat, and they'll practice today, and I'm sure they'll come out Saturday and give everything they've got. But you're now 0-4, and the odds are that things are cooked. And I'll say this. This is the one big picture thing that I'll say. It's very clear to everyone, the players, the coaching staff, the athletic director who talked to the advocate, the fans, this radio host. It's very clear where LSU basketball is right now, okay? Matt McMahon's record is very clear. You can just go look it up. Look it up on LSUsports.net. Look it up on Wikipedia. Look it up on ESPN.com. Look it up on CBS Sportsline. His record at LSU is very clear. It's right there. And that number alone is unacceptable. We understand that. That's very obvious. Here's what I'll say about that situation. The fire the coach crowd tends to be angry, tends to be cranky, tends to be a more demonstrative group than the let's wait and see crowd or the let's keep the coach crowd. That's painting with a broad brush, but that's generally speaking what you get. The fire the coach crowd is ticked. The fire the coach crowd is adamant. The fire the coach crowd will tell you they're right. I don't think this situation warrants any anger whatsoever. You are 4 years into this thing, okay? The anger level should be gone. You watch this team, or you don't. Either way, watch them or don't. There will be lots that don't. My friend group, not going to watch this team. A lot of you will. Most of you won't. Either way, the anger thing can be shoved aside because the athletic director spoke on the record to the newspaper this week and said what he said. And they either are going to go out over the next 14 games and go 8-6, or they're not. And that's it. Like, that's it. There's no argument. There's no fighting. There's no anger. There's no, it's either watching them and pulling for them to go 8-6, or it's apathy. But like any anger that you've got right now, the athletic director's not here anymore. This coach is doing everything he can, and it's just not working right now. They're either going to rebound, get their point guard back, and go on a run that you can be proud of, or they're not, and things will change. But that's it, y'all. Like, there's not a reason to get ticked off. And if you think there not being a reason to get ticked off is a reason to get ticked off, that's a beautiful irony. But it is what it is. I was in the PMAC last night. It was a church until there were 3 minutes to go in the game. It wasn't full. Empty sections all over the place. People not really getting into it. Finally, with 3 minutes to go, those that were there were on their feet and loud, and it felt like an SEC game. But that's where things are. And that's a direct product of the fact that you have not made the NCAA tournament in 3.5 years, and this team's winless in conference and in last place. And none of that is worth arguing about or fighting about or fussing about. I told you after they lost to South Carolina, here's where it is. That's a game they had to win. Now they're going to come. They're going to lose to Vanderbilt. They're going to come home. They got to go 2-0. That if 1-1's the bare minimum. Now you got Saturday. And look, I'm not trying to blow smoke here. I don't. Anyone who's trying to argue with that, I think, is out of their skis as well. But still, with all that I've said about the state of the basketball program, Matt McMahon's win-loss record, all that, which everyone understands, including Matt McMahon, last night was heartbreaking to watch because it felt like they came out, gave their best effort, and they played a team that is more talented than them off their feet for 25 minutes, and they had a chance to win it late, and Kentucky did something that if you gave them 10 more tries to do, they couldn't do it again. That's heartbreaking. For a group of guys and coaches that work all year round and get up early and do everything that they're asked to do, and they go out there and they get in position, and that's a crappy break. It's a bad break. Credit the Kentucky kid. I'm not going to really credit the passer. He's just kind of chucking it there, and the freshman center's got to go make a play, and credit him for doing it. Top 25 player in the country, Kentucky Mr. Basketball, makes a great catch, turns around, and makes a great shot. But Kentucky couldn't do that again if you gave him 10 more throws at it, and that is heartbreaking for those folks inside the LSU basketball program. If you're a fan that's not heartbroken because you've long past apathy, that is more than you're right, and I can't flush for that 1 second. But I was in the building last night. I want them to win. I want them to do well. I want good things for LSU basketball, and it was heartbreaking to sit there and watch. But it puts it all on Saturday. If you can't get it done Saturday, if you're watching, that's me turning out the lights. All right, our Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Lou Johnson talking Saints next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Lifetime Roofing. LifetimeRoofingLA.com is that website. You know, I think that one of the things you got to take into account when you consider a new roof is just who's putting that roof on and who's advising you on that project. There are roofing companies that are dishonest, that are just out there for the money wherever they can grab it. That's never going to be the case with Lifetime Roofing. It's a roofing company you can trust. If you feel like there may be an issue with your roof, or if you feel like you maybe have age might be the reason you need a new roof, or you feel like you're maybe selling your home soon and you want an inspection on your roof, well, let the crew at Lifetime Roofing come out and inspect. They'll come out. They'll tell you, hey, this is fine. They'll tell you, hey, we just need to do a quick repair. It's one spot. It's localized. We'll handle that. They may tell you, just need a tune-up. We need to fortify this, but it's okay in its current structure. We'll just tune it up. Or you made a new roof. But they're not going to just climb up there and go, oh, yeah, there's a missing shingle. Let's get a new roof on this bad boy. That's just not how they do business at Lifetime Roofing. You need to work with a company you can trust when it comes to a large investment like putting a new roof on your home. They've got financing available, 0% up to 18 months, and as of January 1st, can offer a lifetime workmanship warranty. Do business with a local company right here in Baton Rouge with local people, a growing team in the heart of Baton Rouge on College Drive. It's Lifetime Roofing. You can find them online at lifetimeroofingla.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Thursday show is brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Let's talk some black and gold. To do that, we bring in my good friend Luke Johnson with the NOLA.com and The Advocate. Luke, how we doing?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk coaching. I didn't like some of the things that Kellen Moore did and said really early in the season. Clearly, the Saints played some of their best football, albeit against subpar competition late in the season, but I figured he had a bad team that he was coaching as well. So what did you think of Kellen Moore's first year on the gig?
Yeah, I think overall it's hard to not be impressed. I'm with you. There's a lot of stuff that early on was at the bare minimum like head scratching, and at worst it was just like you were actively doing a bad job in some of these situations. But I think when you look at the season as a whole, you look at this roster that I think league wide everybody would have agreed that it was not a good roster, right? And then they lost elements of that roster. Some of the things that we all were saying were probably the best things about it at the beginning of the year. The two explosive receivers. Well, they only had one for most of the year. Their offensive line was supposed to be good. Well, it was really just two players who were good, and one of them was hurt for a number of games. It wasn't a good roster. He got 6 wins out of them. I think you saw some better situations get less out of those teams across the league this year. I think you got really good play out of 2 young quarterbacks. One of them a 5th rounder, one of them a 2nd rounder. These are not like blue chip prospects. I think there's a lot to be excited about. I think the fact that he had Brandon Staley in as his defensive coordinator and some of the other staffing decisions were just smart. I think there's a lot that you feel good about, and you hope that he is kind of humble enough to look at some of the areas where he came up short, either as a play caller, as a game manager, and kind of learns from those in 2026 and beyond.
I know that you went up to the Pacific Northwest, talked to a lot of people who know him. I only know Kellen Moore from my television screen. He appears to be kind of mild-mannered, thoughtful. Is there more fire to him than I realize? And do y'all ever see that in press conference settings?
No, I don't think fire is ever a word that we're going to use to describe him, right? I think it's more for him. It's more about kind of being emotionally intelligent and understanding what buttons to push with people. I don't think those buttons are ever going to be like getting up into your face and the proverbial wanting to make you run through a brick wall. It's just not who he is. But I do think that he knows how to get people to respond to things. And part of that is surrounding yourself with the right people, with the people who are going to respond to that type of message. I don't think he's going to be looking for a lot of guys who need to be like pushed, motivated. At least, guys he's going to be dealing with directly. But like I don't think you look around the league, and there's still some guys like the Sean Paytons, right? There's still some Ben Johnsons going in the post game locker room saying "F the Packers" or whatever. But like I think there's also quite a few people who are more similar to Kellen Moore, where they're never going to be the guy who's getting you fired up. It's just more that players know they can count on him to be smart and intentional with what he's doing, and to put them in good positions to succeed. I think that matters just as much.
What do you like about Brandon Staley?
I mean, I like a lot about him. I think the fact that he did what he did with that defense this year, with it being not really, I don't think they were a super talented group. Obviously, like, they got some really big stuff out of Cam Jordan and Chase Young and Demario Davis, like guys who've done it before in the NFL. But those are guys that, with maybe with the exception of Demario, haven't done it in a couple of years. And he did it in a scheme that was not really suited to that roster either. They kind of like had a half measure roster rebuild to run like a 3-4 base defensive scheme. So I was just super, super, super impressed with him. It's going to be hard to find a media member who says they don't like Brandon Staley. He knows how to work a press conference. He knows how to answer questions thoughtfully with respect, and that's going to earn him points in our book. Like, there's no doubt about that. But I think that as a football coach, that he's incredibly sharp. He knows what he's doing, and I'm really excited to see what the Saints defense looks like in year 2 of his system, when he's had a chance to tailor the roster more toward what he wants to do defensively.
Is the sense around the league that what happened with the Chargers was bad enough that you feel like Brandon Staley may be here a couple more years?
Well, I mean, I think it's at least it's at least going to get him here for 2 years.
Yeah.
Like I do think that the way that went, people do probably want to see a little bit more proof of concept with him, other than the 1 year in LA and 1 year in New Orleans. I think that he's going to have to show it a little bit more than maybe some other coaches, just because of the way that it went in that first outing. And I think that's probably true for most like retread head coaches, guys who are getting their second opportunities. But I don't think it's going to be like a Steve Spagnuolo situation, right? Where he ends up just staying in one place for however long he's been the DC in Kansas City, like 8-9 years. High level Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator, doesn't get a lot of head coaching looks because he really flamed out the one time he got it. I don't think it's going to be quite like that. I think he's still young enough. I think he was probably a little bit ahead of his time on some stuff. Like, a lot of the stuff that he got kind of roasted for was the overuse of the analytical side of things, with being really aggressive on fourth down. We just saw Ben Johnson, who might win Coach of the Year, make what looked to be a bunch of boneheaded fourth down calls in a playoff game that he won, by putting up a bunch of points in the fourth quarter by continuing to stay aggressive. So, I think this is something that we'll see him be back in the cycle eventually. And I'd be surprised if he has another year like this year, if it's not, getting head coaching opportunities in 2027.
Those are the two most important pieces. Obviously, one runs the offense, one runs the defense. But and this is early, but do you sense that there will be significant continuity in the Saints staff overall? I know that the hiring season is coming up as the playoffs continue to progress. How do you feel like that'll play out?
Yeah, I think the one potential spot where they might have some turnover, and we haven't heard anything about this yet, but everybody's looking to see what's going to happen with special teams. I think their special teams units were, without question, bad last year under Phil Galliano, who was who's one of the very few coaches who's a holdover from Dennis Allen's staff, right? So I think there's a chance that they make a change there, but I think Kellen's also somebody who probably wants a little bit of continuity, and he could say, we'll give you another year to kind of figure it out with some different players and some different sides, some different aspects from our process, from Kellen Moore's process. Maybe he gives them a little bit more time to practice on special teams. We don't know exactly how all that went. But yeah, I think there's no question they have to be better there in 2026 for them to continue keeping him on, because that was his first go as a coordinator, and it went really, really poorly. They've got to get a lot better in that area.
We shall see as the offseason continues to roll on. Luke, we appreciate some time. We'll chat next week.
My pleasure, man.
Luke Johnson with The Advocate, at by Luke Johnson on Twitter. He's NOLA.com and The Advocate. Good enough to give us a little insight on the black and gold each and every week. When we come back, 2 more transfer portal targets for LSU, one on the offensive line, one at linebacker. We'll tell you who next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Our friends at Oxford want you to kickstart 2026 the right way with some wellness goals. And they're giving you an acronym right here. SMART, S-M-A-R-T goals. Starts with setting your goals, making them specific, right? Run a 5K or add a couple of pounds of muscle, like something that seems reasonable for you. Make them measurable so you can track your workouts, time your runs, log your reps. Make them achievable. Don't jump into like a 7-day-a-week routine if you're just starting out. Or realistic. Choose goals that work with your lifestyle. A lot of folks are busy. You can't just spend all your time working on fitness and your diet. You got to spend some time raising kids, handling your job, whatever the case may be. So make them realistic and give yourself a time frame. A target date can really help make all the difference. So specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and a time frame. The small wins matter. Stick to that SMART acronym as you kickstart your 2026. And remember, small wins do matter. Doesn't have to just be something massive. Small wins are important as you continue to worry about your wellness as we enter 2026. That's all thanks to our friends over at Ochsner.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Reminding you about my friends up at Fabry Chevrolet GMC, Highway 61 in St. Francisville. Under new ownership now with the Fabry family. You know the Fabry family, been here 35 years, had 3 locations, 5 different brands. Now, proud to bring you Chevrolet GMC up in St. Francisville. Look, when you deal with the Fabrys, you're going to get quality customer service. You're going to get great service after the sale as well. It's going to be a pleasant buying experience. Need a Chevy Tahoe, Chevy Suburban? They got you covered here in 2026. We've also got Silverados if you're in the truck game. On the GMC side, Sierras, Yukons, Denali's. If you're looking for a new vehicle, whether it's new or pre-owned, they've got you over there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. Before you go to St. Francisville and check out that inventory, and it's large, go to FabryChevrolet.com. You can see the entire inventory right there in front of you. You've got pictures and details on all the vehicles, all the great deals they've got there at Fabry Chevrolet GMC. If you're itching to get in the new car, maybe your lease is coming up here in the next couple of months and you want to start looking, Fabry Chevrolet GMC, happy to help you here in 2026. Highway 61 in St. Francisville, and of course online at FabryChevrolet.com. All right, transfer portal still open. Dead period ended on Wednesday. There was a 3-day dead period for the coaches convention. Now coaches back in their respective places on campus, and they are now hosting visitors once again. And there are 2 entrants to the transfer portal that I think LSU should have some interest in. And the first is an interesting case because of obviously where he comes from. That is TJ Daugherty at Ole Miss. TJ Daugherty played linebacker for the Rebels this year and led Ole Miss in tackles. He made 98 stops. He had 5.5 tackles for loss, had a sack and a half. Started right there in the middle of Ole Miss's defense. 6'2", 230 pounds, redshirt junior, was a 4-star recruit coming out of high school, went to Clemson, ended up at Ole Miss. And after I read that, you go 4-star, top 10 linebacker in the country out of high school, red shirts at Clemson, goes to Ole Miss, plays a couple of years, leads a Final Four team in tackles at linebacker. You go, well, that makes all the sense in the world. Go get him. And I think LSU will make a significant play for TJ Daugherty. There are other details, though, that need to be discussed here. One, Pro Football Focus did not love TJ Daugherty's play this year. I went to Ole Miss's defensive page, and you have to scroll down 44 names to find TJ Daugherty's overall grade. Pro Football Focus had him playing 958 snaps on defense. His overall grade was 54.4. His grade in run defense was 60.2. His tackling was 60.5, and his defense against the pass, 51.7. He led Ole Miss in missed tackles as well with 16. Now, you're right there at the line of scrimmage. That's a likely deal. Suntaran Perkins was one of the best Ole Miss defenders on the edge this year, and he had 14 missed tackles, according to PFF. So when you look at his production, it's really good. Is his play elite? That is to be determined. And Pro Football Focus doesn't determine everything. And certainly Lane Kiffin knows a lot about TJ Daugherty. So if he thinks he's a guy he wants to add to this defense, more power to him. There's also an element of a bit of a history with TJ Daugherty when he was at Clemson. And so there were some things that happened off the field. I don't know all the details there. And he's a couple years beyond it. Again, Lane Kiffin knew about that then, knows about it now. If you're willing to bring him into the program, that I don't have a problem with it. Interestingly enough, I was listening to Blake Baker on with the guys in this morning and wrote about what he had to say in LSU dealing with folks in the transfer portal. And I didn't realize in the moment, because everything was so fast and furious with exits and entrants, LSU did not lose a scholarship linebacker with eligibility remaining. Whit Weeks is back. Devon Keys is back. Tylen Singleton's back. Zach Weeks is back. Jaden Breaker's back. Charles Ross is back. Keelan Moses is back. Like, they didn't lose anybody. And that, to me, speaks volumes about Blake Baker. And I think LSU can improve at linebacker. I think they have a solid nucleus there. Right now, if I was standing right here in front of you on January 15th, who's going to start against Clemson if they put 3 linebackers on the field? I think that's Whit Weeks, Devon Singleton, and Devon Keys and Tylen Singleton, I should say. But if you want to add Ole Miss's leading tackler, 98 stops to that equation, and get him in the mix, I don't have a big problem with that. I don't think he's a bad player at all. I think he's a very productive player, and I think that maybe a new set of eyeballs with Blake Baker and maybe a better supporting cast perhaps could allow him to have an even better year than he had last year. But certainly something that LSU will look at because of where he comes from. He has not yet made a visit, just went to the transfer portal in the last 24 hours, and we'll see whether or not he makes his way to Baton Rouge. The word is that he very well might. So that's one that I'm interested in. The other is on the offensive line, where LSU simply has to make a splash. They are not done at offensive line. And everybody wants to talk about Jordan Seaton, and I'll talk about him when that time comes. We mentioned him earlier this week. He'll visit Texas a little bit later. But the name that I want to talk about right now actually comes from Baylor. His name's Melvin Siani. He started all 13 games. Not Baylor, Wake Forest. Started all 13 games at left tackle for Wake Forest this season. And he's 6'6", 302 pounds. And his overall offensive grade on PFF was 72.8. That was third best on Wake's entire offense. Pass blocking grade, 80.7. In the ACC, at left tackle at 6'6", 302. That's what I'm talking about. I've talked about this all week. I do trust Lane Kiffin. I do trust Billy Glasscock. I do trust Eric Wolford and James Craig and these guys to evaluate and to take in guys that they think can help. They know way more than me. I'm not even trying to step on their toes with an analysis. But I'm just saying it makes me feel better to bring in guys with P5 starting experience that have excelled. And this is one of those. Melvin Siani appears to me to be a guy, yes, you want to take. Devin Harper, Ole Miss, reserve, former 4-star, yeah, I want that guy too. Obviously, if you can get Seton, bring him on. That's great. But this is another name that just popped in, and right now I'm just uncomfortable with where LSU's offensive line sits. And if you can bring in somebody that had that kind of success in the ACC, it doesn't immediately translate. I watched Deuce Chestnut play. I know. But I like my chances. And I like my chances better with a guy with those measurables in that conference as opposed to a MEAC transfer or a JUCO transfer. And I look at LSU's tackle situation right now and I go, well, I'm just not really sure. And if you can bring me an ACC tackle transfer that Pro Football Focus graded an 80.7 at pass blocking, 80.7, I'm in on that. There's something in me that wants to go look at what Will Campbell's pass blocking grade was, because I bet it wasn't significantly better than 80.7. And I think everyone would roundly agree that Will Campbell was a pretty good pass blocker at LSU. Like, I think that's a reasonable conclusion to come to. And an 80.7 just doesn't happen all the time. So now I've gotten to PFF. We'll get to blocking. And I want to see what Will Campbell's grade was in 2024 on the pass blocking side. Will Campbell, pass protection, perfect. 80.6. Now, I would suggest that Will Campbell, dealing with that Ole Miss defense and that Bama defense and that A&M defense and that Florida defense and that, USC defense, whatever, was probably better than what Wake played. But if Will Campbell's grading out 80.6 pass blocking and this guy graded out 80.7, like, I'm not an offensive line expert, and I'm not telling you that Pro Football Focus is the gospel. I'm just telling you, I'd like to add that guy to a room that's incomplete right now at tackle. So I think that's a reasonable take. I'll stand by that take. I think that's where I would head if I was LSU. Hopefully they can get him on campus. He just entered the transfer portal this week, so we'll see if LSU can get a visit there. I'm still nervous about the offensive line. I hope they continue to pump guys in there on the offensive front. All right, to finish the hour, I saw some things this morning on highlight tapes that excited me. And I want to talk about one of LSU's offensive additions and what he could be with Lane Kiffin's offense when we come back next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Marucci, what a gem here in Baton Rouge. Love the folks over at Marucci. It's just a cool thing for us to have access here. I watched a lot of Major League Baseball. I was watching Alex Bregman's press conference in Chicago today. He welcomed him in. He's wearing number 3, wants to win his 3rd championship. But Alex Bregman plays a lot of Major League Baseball, and Marucci is the official bat of Major League Baseball. When you consider it just took 2 decades for them to go from making a bat in a wooden shed, in the backyard, to the official bat of Major League Baseball. It's an amazing story. Go learn about it. Go take a tour of Marucci. You can go to maruccisports.com/campus tour. Whether you've got a youth baseball team, a youth softball team, if there's a class field trip that might be cool for a bunch of folks to go see, maybe just you want to go check it out. Go to maruccisports.com and click on campus tour to make it happen. They make 1,200 bats a day. And if you want to, you can grab a bat, go hit in the cage over there at Marucci. Check them out online at maruccisports.com. Book that campus tour. It's maruccisports.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Sagrera Farms.
Shout out to my friends at Sagrera Farms, premium Angus beef. Told this story last week, but on the way up to Shreveport for Christmas, stopped off at Sagrera Farms up there in Ethel, headed north, so decided to stop by. It was my first time on the farm, and man, what an incredible piece of property that Sean's got, and a really impressive operation that he's got there. But the best part was I got loaded down with 4 boxes of Sagrera Farms premium Angus beef, brought it up to Shreveport, kind of dispersed it. We got a big family on my mom's side for Christmas, so we dispersed it to a lot of folks, and there was a family group text circulating on New Year's Eve. Just a couple days later, everybody was pulling out the roasts, everybody's pulling out the ribeyes, the fillets, the strips, and putting them on the grill, preparing them how they would at home, and everybody just blown away at the quality of this beef. It's just awesome. If you are into a great cut of meat, this is where you need to be getting your beef, because it's top 1% in the country. I tell you all the time about the intramuscular fat score and how they grade beef. You've got select, which is 0 to 3 on the scale. You've got choice, which is about 60% of your beef. That's 3 to 7, 8. And then you got 8 plus, which is prime. Sean's cows are ultrasound. That's not a guess. They don't just like cut it open and look at it and go, oh, that's probably what it is. This is ultrasound. They've got the scores. You're talking about 8, 9 as prime. They're 14, 16, 18, 19, 20 on this scale. Better than twice prime grade. The ground beef is phenomenal for burgers. The ribeyes are sensational as well. I love them. I got some in the freezer now. So does most of my family. If you'd like to change the way you buy your beef, do it from my friends at Sagrera Farms. Contact Sean. Say, hey, heard about you on the Hunt Palmer Show. Want to make sure I'm buying my beef from you moving forward. He'd be happy to have you there. I'll give you his phone number here. And you can just reach out to him directly. It's the beauty of it. You just contact Sean, call him, say, hey, heard about you on the Hunt Palmer Show. What do you have for me? And Sean will be happy to oblige. That phone number is, of course, 225, because he's right here, just north of Baton Rouge in Ethel. And then give him a phone call at 719-1723. That's 225-719-1723. All right, closing out the hour, I'm doing a series on LouisianaSports.net called Portal Profile, where I go through every single portal edition LSU makes, and I go through what we know about that player. I go through what we think about the fit, and then my kind of projection for what each player could be. And today's was on Eugene Trey Wilson. I'm going to call him Trey moving forward. I think that's his preferred. That's what he was introduced as at the basketball game last night. He's Eugene Wilson III, goes by Trey. 5-star recruit coming out of the Tampa area. Big get for Billy Napier. And he comes in as a 5-star recruit, and he rocks it as a freshman. 61 catches, 538 yards, 6 touchdowns, 6 carries for 55 yards, making big plays for Billy Napier's team as a 5'10 slot receiver. They use him in the jet sweep game. They use him down the field. They use him in the slot, and he's just making big plays. After that, he got hurt a lot. Played 4 games as a sophomore, significant hip injury, can't play the rest of the season, takes a redshirt year. Comes back last year, only able to play in 8 games, has a high ankle sprain at the end, costs him the rest of his season. But when you turn on the highlight tape of Trey Wilson, you see the 5-star. I'm not a doctor. We can talk to the folks at Auctioner on Monday about this. But I don't feel like a high ankle sprain in October of this year is going to derail his year at LSU next year. Now, there could be a new injury. That could happen with anybody. But like the high ankle sprain, I'm pretty concerned about Will Levitt's Lisfranc. BT yesterday put me at ease with what he went through, but like still Lisfranc injury, surgery, slow healing, no practice time. We'll see. Trey Wilson, high ankle sprain, like I think he'll be back and ready to go. And you see when they get him in open space in this Florida offense, and I've got some highlights in the piece, he turns the corner and he is flying. And he makes guys miss, and he's a water bug out there. And he reminds me a little bit of like Xavion Thomas, but another gear. And so that's really exciting when you consider the pace and the space that Lane Kiffin's offense plays with. There are so many guys that have been brought into this offense at wide receiver. They've got like 12 newcomers. When you count the transfer portal ads, 3 high school kids, like they're bringing in a ton of new dudes at wide receiver. And some of them are 6'2" and 6'3", and some of them are on the smaller side, and some of them are better athletes, and some of them have more speed. Wilson is just your classic, put him in the slot, run the jet sweep game, let him work guys in the slot, in the intermediate game, and he will make some big plays. In his final game at Florida this past year against Georgia, Wilson goes 9 catches, a $121, and a touchdown. Like that's the kind of guy you're getting if you can keep him on the field. And the play that like really stood out to me was a play from a couple years ago. He goes 85 yards for a touchdown on this jet sweep pop pass thing. And he turns it on to a degree like he's leaving these defenders standing still. Now, they're not playing the best team I've ever seen, but the burst of speed that he shows, like I didn't recall that from Trey Wilson. Now, he scored a touchdown against LSU last year, and it was a shorter little sweep that he took into the end zone from about 6 yards out, and I've got that in the video as well. But it caught my eye. Like I've watched highlights of all these guys that I've talked about and that I've written about, and I haven't had this type of reaction to watching the highlight tape, you see the 5-star in Trey Wilson. And playing in a Billy Napier offense that had issues at quarterback with injuries with Mertz, and that he had injuries, and it just nothing ever worked offensively for Florida during the Napier era. Can we agree on that? And can we also agree at the same time that almost everything Lane Kiffin does on offense works? I don't think those are outlandish statements to make. Florida's offense was bad under Napier. Kiffin's offenses are good everywhere. A piece like this, you take him out of that offense, put him into this one, we'll see. Now, I tried to say the same thing with Barryon Brown last year. You could run the tape. Well, Kentucky couldn't complete a forward pass. Now you got Garrett Nussmeier. You've got Joe Sloan calling the plays. They threw for 4,000 yards. Barryon Brown's going to go nuts this year. Well, that didn't happen. But I think Kiffin's a safer bet than the LSU staff from last year on the offensive side of things. Can we agree on that? I think that's a fair thing to say too. So I'm excited about Trey Wilson moving forward. I think that's a guy who could be a huge, huge piece to what LSU is trying to do next year. If you're looking for two guys that I like the most on LSU's offensive group that they brought in at the skill spots, I think it's Jace Brown from Kansas State, and I think it's Trey Wilson from Florida. It's for two different reasons. Brown is the production. Fastest Kansas State receiver to 1,000 yards. Kansas State's sophomore record holder in terms of receiving yards in a season. Big-time producer. This is the talent. Got to keep him healthy, but again, I don't think a high ankle sprain is going to be what derails his 2026 season. He should be good to go in the spring. He should be good to go for LSU against Clemson, and I'm excited about Trey Wilson in this Lane Kiffin, Charlie Weiss offense. That's it for hour number one. We're brought to you by Sagrera Farms Premium Angus Beef. Missed anything in the first hour? Catch it on demand wherever you find your sound. We got a lot to do in hour number two. Blake Baker talked to the guys on the morning show. We'll talk about that. And Chris Blair will be here in 20 minutes on the Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is that website. New year, looking for a project in the home. How about a new bathroom? Maybe it's not your bathroom. Maybe it's someone you love because they're aging and bathroom can be a pretty hazardous place. It's wet, slips and falls, hard floors, unforgiving areas. You can't completely eliminate that risk, but you can mitigate against it. David and his team do it all the time. Non-slip floors, they can do that. Put handrails in slippery areas. They can do that. Walk-in tubs, they're safer, they're more convenient, more comfortable. They can do that. How about a shower with a bench? David Duvall and his team can handle that as well. So if you've never given that any thought, you're thinking, oh, that does make some sense. Aging, dangerous area. Maybe I need to do something to mitigate that risk. Just contact David. Go to OneBathAndClosets.com, set up that free consultation, and move forward with that project. It's David Duvall and One Bath and Closets online at OneBathAndClosets.com.